The CEO Roundtable brings together operations professionals at the top of their game to define and explore what it means to be highly effective in a scale-up organization. And what sits at the heart of it is highly curated peer-to-peer roundtables where COOs talk about things that matter.
I absolutely love my roundtable. We've been together for about 2 years, and without exaggeration, I have made friends for life.
To find out more, go to cooroundtable.com. That's cooroundtable.com. Hello, and welcome to another episode of The Operations Room, a podcast for COOs. I am Brandon Mensinger, joined by my amazing and lovely co-host, Bethany Ayers. How are things going, Bethany?
Hey, I got my adjectives back.
Yes, adjectives are back.
Yes. I'm doing really well because this is the end of my first week as a CEO.
What? First week as CEO? That is amazing. So how does that feel?
Yeah, it's really good.
The power, the control.
It's not so much the power and control as not having an overlord.
Right. Yes, I know what you mean.
So it's not so much being somebody else's overlord as much as just like not having the subconscious specter of somebody who notices everything. It does feel very freeing. So one of the bigger changes is going into an office and doing the London commute again.
Yeah, back to the grind. How many days a week do you need to go in or have to go in?
Well, I mean, it's up to me, isn't it? So we're hybrid. I have a couple people who are remote. So for the London-based team, coming in on a Monday and a Thursday. Monday is, kickoff meetings and just doing them in person rather than everything being on Zoom. I have a bit more energy. And also Mondays are the best day to commute.
Yeah, by far.
Yeah, just you get seats. It's lovely.
Yeah, the tube is dead, half of what it usually is.
So we'll do 2 days a week, everyone, and then ideally teams will choose a third day. And then I was planning on going in probably 3 days a week. We'll see. But for the first 2 weeks, I'm doing 4. And so that's just a real shock to the system.
At my current company, that is now what I'm doing, Monday through Thursday in the office, and Fridays I work from home. And it was a shock to the system, I would say, for the first while. Like there is a certain grind to it every day that you're just not used to. And I guess it's a bit of like muscle memory, kind of when you go to the gym and all that. You need to like get back in the routine. And now that I'm back in the routine, it doesn't faze me, or I don't think about it twice. But I think that initial month or so, there is a bit of a grind effect where you just feel like a little frazzled or something to that effect.
Yeah. And also, like, I'm very aware that right now it's still summertime. And so I'm leaving and it's light, and I'm coming home and it's light, but we're going to tip over to the other side. And I'm not looking forward to the leaving when it's dark and the coming home when it's dark. Have you done that yet?
I think I got the tip end of it when I first joined, because it's now been 6 months. So what is 6 months? I don't even know. That was back in April. So I think we were just coming out of the darkness.
Actually, a question I had for you and our poor listeners is, how are you fitting the gym in? Are you fitting the gym in, or physical exercise?
No, I am. So I have one stickler rule in my life that I've bound myself to for my entire existence, which is the gym workouts have to happen. So with family and work and this grind of 4 days a week in the office, I am up at 4:15. I'm at the gym at 5. I work out 5 to 6. I come back home. I have breakfast. Kids get up. And then we do like the routine with the kids and all that to get them off to school. And then I, boom, go off to work at that point. So when I go to bed, I am in bed, let's say 8:45, something like that. And if I'm good, then I'll be asleep by 9. If I'm not good and I do like a doom scroll, which I did the other night, by the way, then I might be asleep by, let's say 10 max, something like that. By the way, when you doom scroll, do not doom scroll on James Blunt. So
How does that even happen?
I don't even know. I have no idea, but I got caught on one of his videos for some reason, and I watched it, and then I had this desire to watch more James Blunt. And I can tell you this much, it is a fiasco, because there's such a sadness and melancholy to all James Blunt songs. By the end of it, you're doubting your existence as a person. You're like, why? My family, my life, like, what does this all mean? Like, my parents are going to pass. Oh my God, it's terrible.
And then go to sleep for your 4:15 wake-up call.
I know,
yeah, that doesn't sound good at all. I don't know if I can have that discipline, but I'm definitely missing gym exercise. I have things on a Saturday and a Sunday, but to not do anything all week, I'm going to have to figure it out and give myself permission to. I can't do a 4:15 wake up.
Yeah, I know it's such a lifestyle thing. Like you have to be into the shtick, and if you're not, it's impossible to do.
Yeah, there's no way. But maybe lunchtime. This tech shit is driving me crazy. Like new computer, new everything, and it just slows you down. I feel like so much of this week has been fighting my mouse. Oh, and the other thing so the office is nice, other than the fact that it's miles away. It has air conditioning. It was a WeWork, and now WeWork had stopped investing in the building, and a new company has taken it over and is putting some level of investment in, but again, margins and trying to make it work. The security is dreadful. Like there are all the little green buttons that you should use to open up the doors between like the main shaft of the building and the work areas. None of those are locked. So you can just go in and out of everything. There's no need for any level of security. Like if there's any sort of physical audit for SOC 2 or ISO or whatever, like the whole building would fail. And then we have these electric locks for our doors, and you have your app. My app and 6 other people in the company's apps just will not work and we can't get in. And so I'm getting to the office a bit earlier than everybody else in the team and can't get into the office, go downstairs, upstairs, unload the app, reload the app, log in, log out, finally get it to work. Yay. Next day, nothing works again. Then they gave me like a physical pass and they wanted to charge me £50 for the physical pass. And like, I actually saw red for a second because it's like
£50.
Yeah. And I was like, because you can't get your technology to work. So I was like, no, you're just giving me a pass, or I'll pay £50 for the pass, but you'll give me the month's rent for free because I can't actually access my office. So they gave me the card. I was very excited about the card. Didn't work.
Okay. That is very frustrating.
So between trying to use a mouse that isn't the standard mouse and doesn't slide sideways and do the rest, and not being able to get into the office, or just like I'm there at 8:30 trying to get some work done before meetings and then spending 50 minutes to get into the office. This is like the pointless time in my day. I think I always cared about maximizing time, but somehow first week of being a CEO, I notice every second so much more because there's so much stuff I want to do as quickly as possible.
I know what you're saying, especially in our state of life. I'm not sure what the word is exactly, but you know what needs to get done, and there's limited time, and you want to make the most of your time. So having to waste your time on stuff that is either should be solved already, or just like some of these introduction quibbles that you're having feels just like a huge distraction that's unnecessary.
And also just like kind of make the office nicer, get some plants in, some storage.
It's interesting from a founder perspective because through my consulting time, I went to a variety of offices, and you can really see the culture from the founder, because it's usually the founder that either inhibits this kind of thing or wants to really spend time on it. So as an example, when I worked at Trent with Jeff, he was very visual and creative, and he really wanted to spend time and effort to create a fantastic environment that was well set up with plants and visuals of all sorts. And I remember, I think for one of our offsites, I don't know what possessed him to do this, but we ordered in massive block letters the name Trent, but like in huge foam letters, and he just placed them up near where the stage was. These are Trent people. Why do we have like massive Trent letters for no particular reason other than they're huge and cool?
Well, that is a reason. That is 100% a reason. Yeah. I didn't think I was one of those office people, but I am one of those office people. I walked in and there were these weird beanbag chairs and a dead plant and no storage and a sign that doesn't light up. Yeah. Let's get rid of the dead plant and let's get rid of the dorm room vibe, beanbag chairs. It's serviced office, so we can't do loads of cool stuff, but I do want to see if maybe we can paint or do something, just to make it not just be all these white walls. But there's definitely like nice storage, plants, tidy. There's also like these just weird boxes in corners because there's no storage right now. And so that's why like a long thing of low storage is just key. So apparently I am one of those people.
Okay, well, I mean, you're the CEO of the company, so you care about this kind of thing to ensure that it's a good environment for people to work in, especially if they're coming into the office twice a week. We hired our office manager 2 months ago, and he's now having an impact on the office look and feel, which is fantastic. I don't know how this even came up as a thing, We have a sangria tray trolley that now goes around every Thursday. Or not every Thursday, once a month for the all hands. So it's a special event. The sangria trolley goes around at 3:30 or something like that to like offer drinks to people.
Yeah. To have those like things that make a difference and little rituals and a bit of fun. Oh, and you have a male office manager. That sounds different and encouraging.
Yeah. And the line manager is a female, if that makes a difference.
I don't know, but it's just like every office manager I've ever heard of anywhere is a woman. So exciting.
It's been several weeks past now, but I'm curious, I guess, now that we're catching up again. The CEO Roundtable Retreat that you've gone to. So just for the listeners, there's a CEO Roundtable organization, which of course Davinia runs. Once a year, she puts on a retreat, which is in some foreign country. And it's 3, 4, 5 days of CEOs talking about CEO things, presumably.
Workshops, lots of workshops, getting to know each other. Dagmar Aldridge, Dags, also is the other coach on it. And it's like a really nice, they come from 2 different schools or philosophies for their coaching, but they're very complementary. And it was nice to get both views. And you could kind of see like the frameworks of one overlapping with the frameworks of the other. So you get a more like 3-dimensional view of the world rather than what can be quite dogmatic if you're only with one view. So that was really good. Meeting all of the other COOs, getting to know each other. Awesome. So Davinia's training and background now, or where she's really focusing, is transactional analysis, which if you're interested in, go and have a look. If you're COO Roundtable member, she has loads of workshops on it. And it's very much a way of structuring or making sense of the way we interact with each other. So every interaction between a human is a transaction. So you're looking at those transactions. So if you've heard of the drama triangle, that comes from TA. If you've heard of the I'm okay, you're okay, or I'm okay, you're not okay kind of framework, that's another transactional analysis. Are you being a parent, a child, or an adult in a relationship? Like which one's popping up? Those are all TA forms and concepts. So we did quite a bit on the drama triangle, and in it, there's 3 players. There's the persecutor, the victim, and the rescuer. And apparently COOs tend to be the rescuer. And then I was trying to understand the rescuer mindset. And I was just like, I just don't get it, over and over again. And then Davinia's like, okay, I'll give you an example. And she gave an example of she was in a conversation and one person was kind of slagging off another person who the other person liked. So you had like one person, the person they were both talking about was not in the call, but one person liked them and one person didn't like them. And they started to get a bit tensionful. And then Davinia found that uncomfortable. And so then she was trying to rescue the 2 people, but without like being explicit of like, I feel uncomfortable. You seem to be, and it's just like defending one person and the other person feels like a victim and then defending the other person, and then you get this weird dynamic where nobody's happy and everybody's being shut down and things are not being said. And I was like, yeah, I think I don't understand this because I am not a rescuer. I have 0 inclination. And I was like, because apparently you have kind of your default and you can change which part of the dynamic you are, but you tend to default into one role when you enter the drama triangle. And I was like, my default is definitely persecutor. I'll be like, why did you make that mistake? Or what makes you think that? And there's tension between 2 other people. I am perfectly happy to let those 2 people sort it out. I don't need to rescue them at all. I'm there for the ride. Or, so the opposite of a drama triangle is, I don't know, like a virtuous triangle, or I can't remember the exact wording, where you do the opposite. And so instead of being the rescuer who doesn't realize why they're in there wading in and making stuff worse and disempowering the other 2 people, you name it. You say, there's a lot of tension here. I'm feeling this. My interpretation is this and this. Like, how do we bridge the gap? And then you can turn it into a better example. So drama triangle was interesting. And then Dags did something on how to make decisions with your 3 brains, and also just the concept of 3 brains. Like, we talk a lot about our brain and our gut. And then we also talk about our heart, but we kind of, at least for me, I kind of think about it as like above the shoulder line and below the shoulder line. So brain and body, but actually separating it between brain, heart, and gut as our 3 different brains. And there's actually nerve centers in the 3. So it was around, if you're making a decision a process where you start with your heart and why does this matter to me, or what values in me is this reflecting? So you really get the point of purpose in the decision. Then you go to your brain on what are the best options, the pros, the cons, the whatever, do your analytical thinking. Then back down to your heart of which one is most aligned with me and which one aligns with who I am, my values, my purpose. Purpose with a small p, by the way, not like a big ordeal. Then you go down to your gut and say, what's the one thing that I can do? What's the one action? Because apparently your heart is where you feel things and your gut is where your action comes from. So if you've made a decision with your head and then you don't do anything, it's most likely because your gut doesn't think it's right. So then you check in with your gut on what makes the most sense, what's the next action, and then you go back to your heart to consolidate it. We did it in teams to try it on like, what's a goal that we want and how are we going to get to that goal? What's the plan? And did that process. And it was really, it can be much shorter than me explaining it to you, but it was quite a nice way of working it through. And it feels like a very integrated answer in the end.
So we have got a great topic for today, which is what scale-up founders go through. And we have a bit of an unusual episode today with somewhat of a monologue from Jonny Burch on his reflections as a former founder CEO. So he's the former CEO of Progression, which was acquired by CareerMinds last year. And his company was backed by Local Globe and Connect Ventures, two well-respected VCs.
Two VCs in Matomic.
Oh, is that true? I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
The world's aligned here. So off the back of that monologue that he did, it was very engaging and it kind of inspired Bethany and I to think about this in the sense of this episode or this preamble to maybe talk about this a bit more, especially as CEOs to date. What I wanted to start with was founders are kept up at night for a variety of reasons, as we know, which is the cash runway situation, the next quarter's targets and trying to achieve those, that critical hire that needs to come into the company. So they're constantly thinking about all this stuff all the time. How can the CEO help with that, do you think?
So much of it is things that we've spoken about before, like building trust. How do you build the trust quickly? How do you become the trusted advisor and fill in the missing gaps for the CEO? Oh, this is another thing that came up in the retreat that I hadn't thought about before, which is who's your thinking partner? And for a CEO, the COO should be the thinking partner.
I absolutely agree with this. Building that trust with the CEO to have conversations they wouldn't otherwise have with anyone else, and you being a bit of like a release valve and also a thought partner to think about things that they may be uncomfortable sharing with others or with the group at large. Being in that position is critical to help with that founder to sleep at night, I think.
I think everybody needs a thinking partner. And is the CEO the COO's thinking partner? Yes and no. It's almost like question, who is your thinking partner? And by default, if you're somebody else's, does that mean that they're yours or do you need your own?
True. So as a COO, do you mean? So who would I go to? That's a good question, actually. I mean, you're right, because I kind of see myself more as the trusted thought partner to the CEO, because the CEOs that I tend to work with nowadays, at least, generally are more first-time founders for the most part, whereas I've been through this now 3-4 times. So I have a bit more of like an experienced lens on things by which I think I'm a valuable partner to help them think through issues effectively. However, for myself, I definitely go to externals of people that I have long-term relationships with, that I have a lot of respect for, that usually have like managed me in some form in the past, right? So we have Eric Collins as an example, who's been on the show, where he's 10 years my senior, and he was always this presence around me from a leader point of view, where he was well respected, had a lot of skills that I didn't have. A lot of my aspirations were to be more like him in some ways, which this sounds weird, but he would always be there for me to help me over time and had a lot of useful things to say. So that kind of network effect of mentors that reside outside the company is my go-to.
But I wonder, is a thinking partner a mentor? Could be, but it could also be, could it be somebody in your team who is your trusted deputy?
True. Yeah, actually, sorry, that's a good point. I'm thinking about this maybe in a different way, but I think within the company, yeah, you're right. If I think back to my former company, the head of operations that we had brought in, she was my thinking partner. We were a tag team together. She had a lot of skills that I didn't have. So I'd very much bounce things off her, especially for company communication purposes, to think about this a bit deeper in terms of how we communicate policy change or whatever. And she was awesome for that stuff.
Yeah. So I guess I'd say to everyone, think about who's your thinking partner and who are you a thinking partner to?
Yeah, I love that. The other one I was thinking about was this idea of, this comes up quite frequently in the context of a CEO, which is being a force multiplier for the CEO and for the company, and taking the existing plate that exists where things can get done for the company and expanding that plate in some form. What do you make of that concept in terms of helping the CEO to deal with their nightmare of issues?
It's interesting moving from COO to CEO because of having that strong operator background. For me, there's a bit of a default that I can just get it done, but it's not the best use of my time. And have somebody joining on Monday, and I'm very much looking forward to bringing an operator into the business so that I'm not by default doing it all. One of the things that an operator is really good at is bringing in structure. And if you're a first-time COO or ops person in what presumably will be a very chaotic business, getting people aligned, getting rid of some of everybody's mental load, not by automation, but like, we have a weekly meeting and this is a weekly meeting agenda. And we know this is what we talk about. We have a monthly meeting. This is what we're going to cover in the monthly meeting. These are the standard reports. This is how we figure out the process for what our objectives for the month, quarter, year are. Like, you can add in a lot of structured thinking. That means that it frees people up to have creative thoughts.
Yeah, I would absolutely agree with that. And I think that kind of dovetails into the next question, just around founders and CEOs. As the company grows in size, feeling like they're losing control. They don't understand what's happening anymore, and they feel the need to dive into the minutia detail to set directions, which they don't really need to do anymore. And that whole losing control thing, how to deal with that. And I think one aspect of responding to that is exactly what you just said right now, which is setting the rhythms for the company. So if you have an operating rhythm for the company where there is some level of structure and process to the team meetings, the leadership meetings, I just introduced recently a finance operating rhythm to my more recent company, just really understanding like what, in this case, like what is finance supposed to be doing expectation wise for the rest of leadership and for the rest of the organization in terms of when the actuals come in, when the numbers are released to the company in different forms in terms of helping people understand what's happened over the past month or past quarter, the budgeting process and the expectations on a monthly basis with the leaders of the business, just like setting kind of like basic rhythms of stuff to happen. So it's clear that things are happening and that there is there's a way in which things can be communicated whereby the CEO of the business doesn't need to talk to like every single person all the time about everything.
Yeah. And then there's also, just to plug a piece of content that our subscribers can now access, which is the SaaS Flywheel that I've put together and spoken about a few times, along with all of the KPIs within that, is for me a very good way of understanding and diagnosing where you need to dig in and dive into, because working on the business does mean that there are areas that are not performing well, and you do need to dive deep, and you do need to talk to everyone, and you do need to look at the next layer of numbers and metrics and what's going wrong. But you just can't do that across the whole business all the time. But you can unlock a lot by focusing on the problem areas, but looking at and having a consistent set of weekly, monthly, quarterly, whatever makes sense for the cadence of your business, numbers that are the same and focus on the interconnects of your business mean that you can diagnose where you need to dig deep. And so if you're curious about what all those metrics are and how to do that, become a subscriber and you will get the content.
I love that plug. So that's fantastic. I think you're exactly right. For the BAU of the business on a month-to-month basis, if there's clear established touch points of understanding what is going on, so you don't have to talk to everyone. That's part one. And then part two is what you just said, which is when there is problems, there's vehicles structure-wise to allow those problems to be discussed at a deeper level. So whether it's kind of OKR check-in sessions or a leadership offsite where there's a special deep dive going on because of things that have been highlighted or whatever, there's like an additional layer of like so-called structure that allows those things to occur. But then also just more broadly to your point, like on the month-to-month basis, when people, the CEO in this case, can see what is going on in the business in terms of numbers and performance, if they aren't happy with something, then they can do the obvious thing, which is have a second layer of conversations distinctly with the individuals if they choose to. And that's perfectly fine as well. But I think it's this rhythm thing that really is the crux of it, to allow the company to grow and scale and allow the CEO to not have to micromanage.
Yeah. And also frees everybody else's brains to not be micromanaged all the time, because that's where the fear comes in. And then people shut down.
So in this pot, this other idea of losing control, delegation, and this responsive, well, one of the approaches to solve that is to kind of talk through the CEO. Look, we're bringing in leaders of the business that are professionals at what they do. They have to be imbued at the outset with trust, but also over time, that trust needs to be verified, as it were. So it's a bit of this trust and verify concept. Do you like that approach?
We have to, particularly in the beginning, because people interview well if you get to a certain level. Salespeople do it the best of everyone, but execs will interview well, communicate well, say the right things, but they might just not be able to actually execute on anything that they say. Or one of the ones that I find quite common, and I have been victim to it, if victim is the right word, is people who are really good at upward management, but their teams hate them. And hearing about from their teams why they're hated, and then trying to figure out, is it a team that just doesn't like change and accountability, or is that leader an asshole? And if the leader is really good at upward management, there's a disconnect between the two. And so I'll tend to be like, for the team, no, you're just being a bit sensitive, like settle in. But quite often it's because the leader is actually a bad leader, which isn't a delegation thing. It's slightly different, but it's like, I guess, just like when you get a new hire, how do you make sure that they're a good fit? And the delegation part is an element of that. But I guess it's just at the beginning of your question, you're like, default trust. And I do default trust people, but early hires, you just have to be so careful, particularly for leaders. And I don't know how to get that right. And then in terms of the delegation, my favorite framework for delegation still is higher output management. And so I think rather than repeating it again, I'll just say to people, if you haven't read High Output Management by Andy Gove, go and read it. Read the delegation section.
I feel like I need to read that now.
You do. It's really helpful because it's a multi-stage approach. He's laid it out perfectly. I mean, it's a super dry book, but it has all of the fundamentals. And if you can get through the beginning egg machine section, the rest of it's really good. Or save yourself some time and go search it online and just say, what does Andy Gove say about delegation? And it'll pull it up.
And then last question to you. So now that you're moving on to the CEO position, you have a bit of, we're talking about founder CEOs. So we have the exact kind of opposite scenario happening here, which is you're a longtime CEO, a longtime operator. We've done the revenue stuff before. And we think about going into this CEO seat. What is that you need, do you think, to be as effective as you can be as a CEO of the company going forward?
Yeah, I have a couple. So one is to bring an operator in, because my default will be to be an operator and then I'm not being CEO. And so I need to bring somebody in who can do that for me and take on the operator role. I might not need as fully fledged a COO or operator as a first-time founder who doesn't know how the business works. Like, I can guide what I'm looking for, but I ultimately need somebody who can do that really well, and I can step away from it. Then the other part that I know, if I just look in retrospect of what's worked well for me with founder CEOs or CEOs in the past, is they have been amazing salespeople. Not just have the skill of it, but what they both can do is understand intuitively the motivations of other humans without having to ask questions. Like, I feel like in a meeting, they just can read on the foreheads of every person, like what their motivation is. And then they can just play to that motivation and get deals done because they talk to other people's souls. I don't have that skill, but it's a great skill to have when you're trying to find product market fit and grow quickly. So those are the skills that I know are my gaps. Or if I look at what has been successful in other partnerships, are the areas. And then finally, which I think I already have, but is a skill that we need, is I'm not technical, but I can understand technical concepts, but I don't always know and can come up with technical ideas, but I don't know if they're real or not. And so a technical leader who can meet me somewhere on that bridge and can tell me when I'm full of shit and actually understand my ideas and take them when they're good ones and isn't so in the weeds. And if I think about like, who have I partnered with to be successful in growing a business and what are the skills that have worked best for me, those would be those areas.
That's perfect. Yeah, that seems like your dream team setup as you launch into the next kind of couple of quarters. All right, thank you for that. So let's park it here. Let's move on to our monologue with Jonny Burch. We are revving up the engine of the podcast and looking for a great brand to sponsor the show. We have over 7,000 listeners now across COOs, CEOs, founders, and operational professionals who are decision makers for all kinds of technology, including HR, planning, strategy, legal, and other tools.
It's Beth here. I just wanted to thank you for listening to the podcast, and we'd love to keep it going, but we're going to need to get some sponsors in order to do that. So if you work at a company that could benefit from speaking to listeners like you, or know of a company that might benefit, please send them our way.
To find out more, go to operationsroom.co/sponsorship. That is operationsroom.co/sponsorship.
I'm honestly asking myself, do I want to be a CEO again? There's so much to love about it, but it was incredibly difficult. So I was a designer before I was a CEO. And design is, maybe every role is a unique flower, but designers are, I think, are quite a sort of a unique role and exist in a space that is very gut driven. Everyone has an opinion. The data is over there somewhere, but really it's about like, how does it feel? And you get thrown into a world where, and probably as a designer, you've been told how good you are at this thing and had smoke blown up your ass a reasonable amount over your career to date. So then to hit this hard reality that the market doesn't give a shit and the extraordinary amount of, so we raised money twice. So, I must have spoken to probably order of magnitude 50 VCs, pitched to 50 VCs, and an enormous amount of rejection and just like wondering what you're even doing with your life. And shouldn't you have just been a design director at that company and that would have been easy? And so all of this kind of stuff sort of goes back. As I've left, I've started to go, well, I could choose to not do that again. And I probably will do it again, quite honestly, because there's nothing quite like it. But it's a fascinating role. I think it's well defined by the people as you're about the vision and hiring and fundraising. There's very few jobs that are just the most important thing for you to do. And so much of it is storytelling and being always up and always like pumped and projecting confidence and all of that kind of stuff, even if you're having a bad day, and days can go from good to bad all at once in that role. So it's a big performance. It's not performance in the sense of like, it's not real, but it's like, you're pitching everyone, whether it's, the customer's early stage, you're pitching all of your prospects, you're pitching your new hires on a bloke and a dream, or two blokes in our case, or women or whatever. But like, there's no brand behind you. I came from Deliveroo, where it's like, you just had to say Deliveroo and they'd be like, okay, well, I'm going to talk to you about this. Suddenly it's just like, I promise this is going to be a thing. It's just a completely fascinating, incredibly difficult. I probably still haven't processed all of it 5 months after putting down my pen. So it has changed my brain though, and I'm not sure, maybe things will change. I'm not sure I could just be a designer anymore.
How has it changed your brain?
You've seen too much.
yeah, the 1,000-yard stare. I just think the biggest we'd ever been was like 19 people. So, we were a small company, but I started to get this, I don't know how to say this without it sounding like I like the power trip. But it sort of is like the amount of influence you can have over something is exciting. And it's also what makes it so hard. And you can always put in more work and you never know if you've got the right answer. And you usually don't find out for a year after you've made the decision. And you have very few levers, but you need to execute them perfectly. There's so many benchmarks. You can see all of the other people that are doing it well. And you're completely on your own. So that makes it sound bad. But I think that's also what makes it so exciting, basically. Is I've always been drawn to being in smaller organizations because of the amount of impact that I can have in that organization relative to its size. And I think that this is sort of the ultimate example of that. So yeah, I would just say, like, you find out a lot about yourself and you very quickly find out what you're not good at, I would say. And you can avoid that for a lot of your life if you sit in big organizations, probably. So if you want to find that out, then I would recommend it.
That was a very helpful question, Brandon, because I'm starting my first CEO role on the 11th of August. And so finding out about all the other CEOs and what they found easy and hard is very valuable. Thank you for sharing. So we are running out of time now, but if our listeners can only take one thing away from listening to you, what is that one thing?
When you're thinking about HR things like people-focused activities, or whether it's performance or progression, career frameworks, or anything in that space, just being really employee-centric is important. And I think that HR team are actually good at that, but they're not always in a position, it's sad to say, not always in a position where they can actually influence on their own. So as a leader, whatever decision either you are making or these poor people are making on your behalf, you have to be there supporting it vocally. You have to be excited about it. You have to be the person presenting it to the organization. You have to be there in every performance review, being supportive of the process. And you have to be pulling out the career frameworks to point out people that are doing a good job and just got a promotion. Like, it needs to be used by you all the time in order for people to feel like it's a thing and not just a fun project that HR worked on that quarter. So as a leader, it's so important. And this goes really with anything. The example I always use for this, which isn't in this space, at Deliveroo, a guy called Mike Hudak, who is now a founder at a company called Sling, but he was at Facebook and then Deliveroo and then Monzo and in leadership roles, really brilliant guy. He decided that we should use Facebook at work, Facebook Workplace. And we were a Slack company, it was Slack chaos. Like, you literally couldn't get anything done because you were being pinged constantly on Slack. And he was like, we're going to do Facebook at work. And everyone said, this is going to be terrible. We don't want this. And then he said, the only place I will go is Facebook at work. So if you want me to see something, you have to go there. And it felt like him just saying that and saying, I'm going to put my money where my mouth is, just the change was pretty much overnight. And all the people that wanted to show off their projects or get some buy-in from senior stakeholders or whatever it was in there. And then everyone else was in there. There was still like shit chat in Slack. And, if you wanted to just like quickly talk to someone, you'd do that. But that's where it ended up being. That's where the culture was. And that's where you would go for the big news. So I just think that is, if you want something to actually land, you have to stand by it as a leader and you can't just leave it to HR. It's really tough for them.
Every HR leader will be thanking you. Yeah.
That's a wonderful way to finish things up. So thank you, Jonny Burch, for joining us on the operations room. If you like what you hear, please subscribe or leave us a comment, and we will see you next week.